Start with you because we missed you Thursday and Friday. Do you think Michael Sam will land on another team?
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. He had about 3 sacks, about 11 tackles, 6 tackles. I think it was 5 or 6 tackles in one game. He showed an ability to get to the quarterback. Now, obviously, he's been labeled a tweener to some degree. Too small in terms of rushing the passer, too slow to be a linebacker, to be able to drop back in coverage. That's why our very own John Clayton has said that the likelihood is that he'll end up in a 4-3 defense as opposed to a 3-4. And that's going to rule out about half the teams in the NFL. But for those teams playing a 4-3, the likelihood is that he'll have an opportunity to land somewhere because he made it until the final cut, despite the fact that you're talking about a St. Louis Rams squad who is considered to be one of the elite teams in the game in terms of the prowess of athletes that they have on their defensive line. They've got 9 different individual defensive linemen that made the team. Now, he lost out to Ethan Westbrook because he was outplayed, and Westbrook was considered to be more versatile, and we all know this. But in the end, the fact that you came down to that last Saturday and you put up the numbers, the respectable numbers in preseason that you did, I think it was enough for folks to take notice. I think it was enough for people to look at him and say that this dude can play some football, and more importantly, that he has the ability potentially to get to the passer, and he can only grow. He can get bigger. He can get a little faster, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, he's going to work incredibly hard because he wants this badly. So when you look at those elements, I think it's clear that somebody who is considerably less in terms of quality than the St. Louis Rams, which are many of those teams, by the way, I think somebody ultimately will grab him, and he won't only make a practice squad, he'll make an NFL roster.
Coach.
Well, Steven says a lot of good things, and he basically breaks him down. He is a guy that has to play in the 4-3 defense. He is not a versatile player by any stretch of the imagination. He's not going to become one. His trait is put my hand on the ground and go rush the quarterback. I thought he had a good preseason. The numbers game always catches up with players, according to what team you're on. And generally, you keep 9 defensive linemen. You're talking about the Rams have one of the best fronts in the National Football League. And when you think about practice squads, well, how are they implemented? A lot has to do with injuries. A lot has to do with players in certain positions. And obviously, a defensive lineman is always a valuable position, but his ability to rush the passer as a 4-3 end limits his ability to go to 31 other teams. Maybe all of a sudden now 14 teams. Yeah. And so that's always a factor in this. I will tell you this, being in the chair of a head coach and you formulate your practice squad team, there's certain positions you're light at because you have to practice. These guys become what we call the look team of the opponent. And there's certain positions you need to have because you can't wear guys out. Obviously, wide receivers. You can't keep enough wide receivers anymore because of the way people throw the football. So you can't use your core guys. You got to use practice squad guys, maybe a third quarterback. So these numbers start adding up. And sometimes certain positions, you know what? We don't need that position. So when you think about the Rams, they've got 9 defensive linemen. So will they keep another lineman? Maybe. But according if there's some offensive linemen hurt, you know, and every team has to look at their squad a little bit different. After week 2, these practice squad players change. They change. This is not when you make a practice squad, you're there for 16 weeks. It changes. It's in flux. It's always in flux. You'd like to keep those guys. His best chance right now is go back to the Rams. He knows the coaches. He spent 3 months there. He's been in the system. They understand his strengths. They set up for him to have success there. This would be the best team for him to sign back on to. And I always believe rookies, if you can go back to the practice squad on your team, it gives you an up. Gives you a better chance.
Okay.
Okay, back to Kerry's question. Do I think another team will sign him? Not sure about that because I don't run those teams. Now, if you ask me, would I sign him on my 4-3 defensive team? And what are there, maybe 14 others?
14, not counting the Rams, was 15, yeah. I'll have to leave.
You better believe I would. But I've been on record since before the draft. I would have taken this young man in the 3rd round, and the Rams took him as their 3rd of 4 7th-round picks. That's how late he went in the draft. And by the way, all 4 of their 7th-round picks got cut, just to be fair about this. But to me, I am always prone to, I lean toward productive Southeastern Conference football players. He clearly was the co-defensive player of the year in the SEC, not in the Big 12 or the Pac 12 or wherever you, the SEC co-defensive player of the year. And every time I watched him on television in college, he did jump off my screen because he is high motor. He is high energy. He makes plays that you can't teach or coach because he's built that way. He would energize his defense, and when they were at home, his crowd. So, yeah, I'm going to give that guy a chance on my team because I think he might be able to make a play or two for me this year. And yet, I was watching NFL Network early this morning, and I saw that Ian Rappaport, their reporter, reported that he hasn't been a good practice player for the Rams. Well, how many of these guys have we seen come along? Not a great practice player, but what happened when he got in the preseason games? Did he make some things happen? Yeah, he made some things happen, right? Okay, so why wouldn't I want him on my team? Well, now it's back to coach here. We are on the verge of the regular season. Well, clearly, Michael Sam is a huge story. And I'm not saying that's a negative. He's just a huge story because he's a pioneer. He is the first, right? So would you, Coach Edwards, want him to be brought into your locker room because all your coaches and your players are going to get asked repeatedly all week this week about Michael Sam? Would you want him right now on your football team? Well, the answer is probably no, because you don't want that big. And it's not a negative distraction. It's just a big story that's going to come into your fold on the verge of the regular season. Is that fair? Is that?
Oh, that's fair to say. That there's some clubs that probably feel that way, and obviously those clubs probably didn't have him on the board to draft.
Okay.
To be quite honest. I mean, when you think about what you're saying and where you're going with this, with the story, and I understand what you're saying, but I also believe this. I think even though he, and Stephen A. made lieu of it, there's a difference between 53 and 46. 53, yeah, you're on the roster, but do you dress on Sunday?
Yeah.
Because only 46 players dress on Sunday. And the 46th guy happens to be the quarterback. So really 45. So when you look at the breakdown of how you break down a football team, offensively and defensively, it's about a players. Let's just say defensively, you're playing a team that runs the ball. Well, you may only dress 21 players on defense. And then the rest of them are on offense to get to your 45. So that's the problem with our league. Mm-hmm. We pay 53 guys full salary, but on Saturday night or by Sunday morning, we have to deactivate 8 players. No. So you don't play with 53 guys. What I'm saying, Stephen A., I'm saying you go into a game, you might only be able to dress 6 to 7 defensive linemen.
Sure. So you
can't dress all 9.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Stephen A.? Okay.
But let me make this point.
Yes.
I get where you're coming from, Coach, but here's where I respectfully disagree with you. You talked about how going back to St. Louis is the best place for him to go.
Yes.
I would make the argument to you that's the worst place he could go. You know why? Because of Chris Long, because of Quinn, because of Brockers and Langford, because of Hayes, who's your utility guy, because of Laurinaitis, Ogletree, and Dunbar and those boys in your linebacker. These boys are loaded. You know, let's be clear about something here with Michael Sam. Michael Sam doesn't want to make a roster. He wants to play. And going someplace where the talent is considerably less is where you want to go because you got a better shot. These boys in St. Louis are no joke. That's why nobody is really sweating the fact that Michael Sam was cut by Jeff Fisher. That's why people basically assumed that Saturday it was inevitable that he was going to get cut. These boys have 9 different individuals on your defensive line. Westbrooks is the last dude. He's number 9. These boys are loaded. They don't need him. So if you were to bring Michael Sam back, it is clearly something to make him feel good, or you could call it PR, you call whatever it is. I don't know. But I do know that this brother right here at this particular juncture doesn't need to be in St. Louis. It ain't because of the distractions. It ain't because of the media following. It ain't because of all of this stuff. It's because as good as he was in the SEC, Skip, as talented as he was as co-defensive player of the year in the SEC for Missouri, the brother ain't good enough right now because St. Louis is elite. On another team, he would be, but for the St. Louis Rams in the NFC West, defensively, these boys are big time. You don't get to be a 7th-round pick and penetrate a unit that has 5 first-round picks on it. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, but you brought up the point that he got the worst break possible that he could have gotten because of Ethan Westbrooks. The way Jeff Fisher is talking about this young man, he might be the biggest diamond in the undrafted free agent rough of the NFL. They're talking about him as they have discovered a potential star who can play every defensive line position from right to left. And how do you fight that? I mean, as well as Michael Sam played in the preseason, the other kid played even better, to the point they said, we have to keep the other kid.
But I feel what you're saying, because the other kid, Westbrooks, wasn't a 7th-round pick. I understand and respect that. But what I'm saying to you, Skip, is that, okay, that's yet another dude that's more talented. That's not to knock Michael Sam. That's not to say that he can't play. I'm just saying on this team, as Coach was pointing out, when you talk about it's best for him to go back to the team because he knows the coaches, no, Coach, it's best for him to go where the best opportunity for him to play may be, because it ain't St. Louis. Well, these boys are loaded. Well, it's just that simple to me. They are loaded.
I understand that, but I think you're missing the point. What I'm really saying is this. When you look at the preseason, the 31 other teams, you know the teams that are loaded at certain positions. And you sit there during the preseason, when your scouts go scout other teams, they say, hey, you know what? The Rams are loaded with a bunch of defensive linemen. They're going to cut a couple guys, okay? Who will be available out of who they cut? We can maybe pick up one of those guys either on our 53, which you can do, because you can cut your – we used to cut our roster down to 51, actually. So we could bring guys in. We didn't have to worry about practice squad. We say, you know what? Call your agent. You're going to be part of our 53. Okay. Well, no team has done that yet for Michael Sam, all right? Or we can bring them on your practice squad. Well, as good as the Rams are, you know they're going to be going there. Scouts are looking at the Rams. They're looking at this front, like Stephen A. said, and they're going, you know, they can't keep all these guys. Well, there's 31 other teams. 700 players actually got cut. 300 will be available to get picked up. He hadn't been picked up yet. So as good as we think he is, well, I'm just saying, as good as we say he's played in the preseason.
Right.
31 other teams, I'll say 14 teams have an option right now of picking him up and putting him on the practice squad. They haven't done that. Why?
Coach?
That's the question I got. Why?
Right. Coach, yes, they haven't done. They haven't done that. They haven't done that. Now, the elephant in the room is with this question mark. Did they not pick him up because they're thinking about the distractions that they're perceiving that distractions may come with him, and we all know what kind of distractions we're talking about here. The answer might be yes. That's what they may be thinking about. We can't sit here and look at what we saw this dude do in the preseason and just automatically assume it's strictly football that he's not picked up off waivers.
Coach, distraction is an issue.
You can't pick Michael Sam up off waivers. Well, I'm just saying, I think that some teams are thinking about that. Jeff Fisher, they didn't think about it. The St. Louis Rams may not have think about it, but other teams might.
I agree. But I'm going to say if there's 14 available teams, I'm hoping that our league is bigger than that, and 14 teams aren't saying, well, we don't want to pick this guy up because of the distraction he might bring to our locker room. I'm hoping that's not the truth.
Coach,
I'm hoping 14 teams don't feel that.
You're thinking one of the 14.
I find that
you know what I'm saying, Stephen A?
With all due respect, Coach, with all due respect, that part, not about you, but about what you alluded to with the NFL, I find that position laughable. You know why? Because the NFL is ultra sensitive about practically everything. They may have dropped the ball in recent weeks or on an item or two, but for the most part, they are highly sensitive about everything. And so to me, if you're talking about anybody else, you're absolutely right. But is it plausible that 14 NFL teams could say, we don't want to touch this because of stuff that doesn't have much to do with football? You're damn right. Absolutely, because it's the NFL.
Well, then
and that's what they do.
Well, then we're in a sad position. We're in a sad position.
We've been in a sad thing.
We're in a sad
We've been saying it. We've been as great as the league
personally,
is.
I don't think that way.
The league is.
I know enough organizations and people that run those organizations that don't feel that way, and I hope I'm right. I'm hoping I'm right. I'm hoping I'm not wrong. And I'm just saying, I've been in the league a long time. I know GMs, I know head coaches that have been in this league a long time, and I'm hoping that all 14 of them, if they're 4-3 defenses, aren't feeling that way. Because if they are, men, we're screwed up. We're screwed up if we feel that way. We are.
We are.
That's disappointing.
We are screwed up, and the NFL is one of them. But be clear. It wouldn't be that way if he were a first or second round pick or something like that. That factors in too. You, like you said on many occasions, the more talented you are,